Welcome to Action Lab Live. My name is Torlando. I am with Chris Watson. We are your co-hosts, and it's the Action Lab. This
It's
is
the
where
Action Lab.
marketing and sales unite, and sometimes battle. We sometimes battle, don't we, Chris?
We do. Yes, sometimes we are in a civil war.
That's
We are
right.
going after it.
Yeah, I see. There's so much chatter on LinkedIn about sales versus marketing that it really does feel like a civil war, at least externally. And I'm wondering what you're seeing as you work with different companies. Do you see that same level of heat happening between marketing and sales teams?
Yeah, I see it. What's the right way to say it? It's 3 layers deep. So like, yes, it's going on, but and I think it's the worst kind of war going on. But
Yeah.
it's almost like I know what it is. It's like high school when you're growing up and you and another kid both know you don't like each other and the whole school knows you don't like each other, but instead of like having an actual like brawl at 4:30 behind the monkey bars, you
Mm-hmm.
just don't talk to each other, right? You just like
Mm,
make sure like the teachers don't sit you next to each other, right? So
mm-hmm.
I feel like it's that kind of relationship, which is actually the worst. And as we've been doing this, I just have been having more and more conversations, and salespeople just keep telling me, or sales leaders keep telling me, like, yeah, I just use their stuff because that's what I'm supposed to do. Oh, yeah, I
Mm.
just put out their thing because that's what. Well, and I always ask, like, well, do you ever get a chance to like talk to them about it? No, not really. If they reached out, I would. And that
Mm.
right there, if they reached out, I would,
Yeah.
tells me that both it's like a bad marriage that both people
Oh,
almost
yeah.
feel like I can't I will be surrendering the war if I go reach out to them. I'll be signing the treaty and I can't do that because that would be I'd be a traitor to my department.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the feeling of it. But I think also, and I'll let you speak to the rest of it today, is that I think both groups would agree that what we're going to talk about today is they can agree upon that this is what is going to bring in the revenue and this is what's going to help both departments succeed. Now, regardless of who takes credit, that's
Mhm.
another story for
Mhm.
another day. But today we're truly talking about product positioning, and we're going to talk about the elixir for you. And I think everybody wants to hear about it. For you,
Yep.
it was the turkey tenderloin. That was
Yeah.
the elixir when we spoke
Yeah.
last week. So did that meet expectations?
It did. It was good. It was really, really good. Everybody loved the turkey, and it really added to the dish. And so, yeah, the elixir, the idea. So, both Chris and I, we really love storytelling, especially as a tool to be used in the marketing and sales process. And when you go back and you study the classics, when you study the hero's journey, the end scene, the final battle is where the hero retrieves the magic elixir, takes it home to back to the ordinary world, back to his home country, homeland, home world, and all is set right in the world. And the magic elixir really needs to be your product, the
Mhm.
offer, your
Yeah.
service, right? This is the magic elixir. And too often we position ourselves, we position ourselves as the hero of the story. We position, the product in a way. So a lot of companies don't fully understand how to escalate the stakes in the buyer's journey
Mhm.
to understand how to say yes, this magic elixir is going to be the thing that if you bring this back to your boss, if you come, your boss has said, hey, we gotta solve this problem, we're losing money because X, Y, and Z, we gotta find something. And then they go out and do their searches, and maybe they're looking for a software, maybe they're looking for a consultant, they're looking for something, and then they come back to the boss and say, I think I've found it. Well, I've been on these calls where, the searcher has come to me. We have a conversation. They're like, man, I think this is the thing that's going to help us do this. We have that call. I say, let's get on a call and bring in, your team, and I'll bring in my team. The boss comes in, and because the searcher was so stoked that he finally found that magic elixir, that made the deal go really, really fast. And I've been able to close, some really good sized deals in a matter of 10 days. Deals that usually take 60 days to close, I've been able to close them in 10 days, because we've successfully positioned the product as the magic elixir that's going to solve all of their unique problems.
Yeah, this reminds me of what a lot of people are experiencing with Christmas gifts, that people are seeking out. They know what they want, and the problem that they're solving is, I've got to go get this gift because my kid just asked for this thing. And so
you like
excuse
Jingle
me,
All the
recently,
Way? Remember
Jingle
that?
All the Way. Yes, thank
Yeah,
you. Jingle All the
Turbo
Way.
Man.
Rocket Man. Or Turbo Man. Yeah,
Turbo
Turbo Man.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think that my son wanted a Nintendo Switch, and so we had been searching high and low for a Nintendo Switch, and I don't want as a parent to say it was crisis level, but it gets that way the closer you get to Christmas, and so it becomes crisis level. And that in turn, for a parent, I would say, does a lot of things. One, you're asking yourself, how much am I willing to pay? Two, you're thinking, well, like, are there alternatives? And in most cases, if it was a specific gift asked for, there is no alternatives,
Yeah. Nobody wants the sidekick.
Right,
as we learned from Jingle All the Way.
Right, exactly. And not only, I mean, no one wants the Zune, they want the iPod, right? Growing up, who wanted the Microsoft Zune? No one's asking for the Zune, So, yeah, I wonder. I get your take on this. Is that, are there a lot of companies out there that are selling their product as a nice to have, as a, hey, our product is, I hear sometimes like enhancement, like, oh, it's going to be an enhancement to your world, right? And I think if you're not already bought in to maybe that lifestyle or that want or that need, that it's really difficult. And the truth is sometimes these enhancements that we buy, we never buy those products ever again, because we realize that they weren't the painkiller. They weren't the thing we needed. So I think the first thing that we need to discuss is, how do we get our elixir to be a painkiller and not just a, hey, this would be nice to have, or an enhancement for
a vitamin.
Yeah, a vitamin. I like that. A vitamin. How do we? There's a lot of products out there that are vitamins instead of painkillers, and so I think and let me throw this out there, Mr. Marketing Guy. I think it's because we lean so much in using language to establish credibility versus almost familiarity of knowing what they're going through. So I'll let you kick it off and talk about how it's very important the elixir is a painkiller and not a vitamin.
Yeah. So, I think where a lot of companies go wrong is really in the founding of the company, in the founding of the product. When you create a new product, and you bring it to market, a lot of times you're going off of a hunch that there's a problem to be solved. And a lot of times I see, people who solved a problem that they were having. And that's how they became aware of the idea and the concept. The challenge is, Yeah, is it a nice to have? Is a have to have, painkiller versus vitamin? So I'll give you an example of this company that I think has done exactly this, and I think that they're doing a really good job of transitioning because of the way that they're messaging. So I run another podcast. It's for the painting contractors industry, and there's a company. It's a software called Company Cam, and I had the founder of the company come on, and he told us, he told the story and everything. And at the beginning, I told him like, "Hey, this podcast it's not a 45-minute infomercial for your business. So let's we got to give the people something tangible and real." And he did a phenomenal job. And he said that the reason that he started the company was because he was a roofing contractor. He was involved in family business, and they had anywhere from 50 to 100 projects going on at a single time throughout their city. So they're good size roofing company. That's a lot of projects in any trades company. And he said that there was just so much chaos, and I couldn't stay organized, and I've always struggled staying organized. And I just felt like if we could communicate visually with our team and not just through text message or through phone call, and we could communicate visually, that we would be able to stay way more on top of the projects. The little problems wouldn't escalate into huge problems. So he created this product called Company Cam, which is basically like a company based private Instagram feed for all the projects that are happening. So all the crews, they go out, they take a picture of what they're working on. If they run into a snag, they take a picture of it. It goes back to anybody in the company anywhere can view the feed. They can view the stream of photos coming in, and they can make comments, and they can offer assistance and all of this. And he said that he didn't really intend on he didn't know that the feed was going to be so valuable until it got out there. So he's going in with all of these assumptions, and I got to be honest, before I talked to him, I really did feel like, well, that's yeah, sure, maybe that's nice to have, but is it necessary? Is it really necessary to have an app that can take pictures? And because it's like, we've got apps that can take pictures. Your phone can take a picture. Why not send a text message? Why not upload it to a Google Drive folder? And he did such a good job at turning his product into this magic elixir and making it so much more of a painkiller and not a vitamin, because he said, here's the deal. You should do that. You should do that. If you're not doing that, do it. Okay. But here's the thing. Once you do that, once you start doing that and you realize how powerful it is to communicate with pictures, what the next problem that you're going to have, especially when you start to scale and you have all these projects going on, is all of that information is going to be so disorganized, and it's going to be overwhelming, and it's just not going to be as helpful. It's not going to be as useful. It's not going to be as actionable unless it's in an organized system. And he said, look, adoption is key. You're going to get so much information from this, but to have your crew, to remind them to take the picture, and then you got to get them to upload it into a drive, and you got to create the folder, and so who's going to create all those folders? And he started rattling off all these problems that come from trying to do it, DIY. And then he just laid it out so easily, said that, with us, you get to the job, and the geolocation puts the address on the phone, and it's automatically categorized by job site. So all they have to do is open their phone, confirm that they're there, take the picture, click upload, and now everybody in the company is seeing what's going on. And he said that the crew members across town are looking, and saying, hey, they're kind of jeering him on the quality. It's like, what is this, your first day on the job? So now they know everybody's watching, and so the level of the workmanship goes up. All of these problems that they didn't even know that they had were solved because of the magic elixir. And he did a phenomenal job. Now, the question is it a painkiller versus a vitamin? Is it nice to have versus have to have? you have to recognize that for some people at some stages of business, that would be a nice to have, that would be a vitamin. Does a 3-person company where the people are out there on the job sites every day, do they necessarily need that? No, probably not. But when you get to 50, 60 jobs going on at once, and you're trying to organize all that stuff in the field, then you have some real problems happening. You have real dysfunction, real disorder. You got customers who are complaining, you don't know why. It becomes a real problem. And so the key is to align the product with the audience and understand your audience enough to know where the real problem lies. Not enough companies do that at the beginning, and it causes them to suffer in the long run, because maybe it's a kind of a top down thing where the CEO says, this is who we're going after, this is who we're going after. But then once sales and marketing gets in the field and starts talking to people, it's like, actually this audience, they don't really see it that way. This isn't really that big of a problem to them. And so maybe we got to find the right audience, or we need to adjust the product, and that feedback has to get back to the product team to help inform them whether their product is actually a painkiller or not.
Yeah. The nice to have, I think, cast a much wider net. When it becomes a painkiller, it's a much more focused approach. And so to your point, I think a lot of companies start in this nice to have mode. And then if they're smart and they pick up cues and they listen to marketing and they listen to sales and they have that alignment, then they begin to realize, oh, you know who is buying our product the most profitable, most fun to work with, most enjoyable, as you and I have spoken about.
Easiest.
When they start thinking about those, then it was a painkiller for those. And I think that's what goes by the wayside for companies that aren't working with Action Lab, or at least aren't having a connection internally, is that sales and marketing aren't sharing that information. And when sales and marketing isn't sharing that information, then we potentially are marketing our product to a nice to have group, and sales is doing their job of maybe forcing a nice to have customer to try to realize it's a painkiller, make a purchase that then doesn't sustain, help them grow. They're not going to tell anybody anything good about it. And then now we're in a situation where if that compounds, our company's not doing very good, all because of what? All because there isn't alignment, all because there's this internal quiet, cold civil war that potentially is going on between marketing and sales.
That's right. And that information will subsequently not get to the product team, which is where that information ultimately needs to go in order to improve the product, right? Because what will happen is it'll just sound like sales is complaining all the time. And, marketing is like, well, let's, try this. And they're kind of stabbing in the dark. And meanwhile, the product team doesn't really fully understand the why behind the widget. They don't understand why they're making what they're making. And that's not always fulfilling for somebody. I mean, it's one thing to come up and show up and, mark task off your, sprint board, but to really understand why you're making this and how it's going to impact real people and why it's going to impact real lives, and to then see the results happening in real time, that gives purpose for the whole company. And to your point, if sales and marketing aren't communicating, if they're stonewalling each other, if they're criticizing and being defensive, the health of the company is going to be really poor, and you're not going to be able to make a real dent and impact in the market that way.
Yeah, something you said before we started, I think it's a really good point to discuss a bit, is we talked about behavior change or behavior modification. And I think that's where we see a lot of organizations, probably more on the sales side, is where salespeople that I have trained and worked with, and even myself, it does become difficult when I'm asking someone to change behavior and it may be
Mhm.
even changing behavior um, before they buy my product, and
Yep.
showing them how that behavior change is an improvement. So I want to lay this out real simply for anyone out there listening, is that I want you to think about that I'm asking someone to potentially, before they buy a product, I'm saying I'm gonna influence you to change your behavior. And with that behavior change, now my product becomes a painkiller. So that means in their mindset right now, it's,
Yep.
well, maybe I just keep doing what I'm doing and not have a behavior change. And what I say in sales is the most difficult sale is when there is a discrepancy between want and need. And as salespeople, a lot of times we see what organizations need, but they don't know that's what they need because they think they want something else. Well, that's behavior change. The
Yeah.
reason why
Yeah.
they're in a want mode, want, is because their behavior is continuing doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
Marketing has to help sales in turn to say, hey, there's got to be a way we communicate the want versus the need through our marketing to show that if that this is a need for every organization and here's why. And if we can
Yeah.
do that through our marketing, now there that buyer's almost had a little bit of a conflict between want versus need. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of value in that, because then our product can be communicated because there is a behavior change or a behavior modification. We'll
Yeah.
just use the same example that you just talked about. These people that were on the job sites, they were taking pictures already, right? They're already doing that. Um, how are they doing that? In probably a very unorganized way. I
Mhm.
think you said, before the show, you said something that was funny. You said, yeah, they got a picture of a non-completed product or project next to a picture of their kid's fifth birthday party, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Right.
no organization in that. And I think that's really key when I think about and our neighborhood just got finished building, but when I would
Mhm.
talk to a builder and the builder would say, "Oh yeah, we're building 42 houses in the next 6 weeks." And think about everything that goes into that, all the subcontractors, and he's getting that many text messages and that many emails, that if it's unorganized, then yeah, that becomes a pain killer. But how do
Mhm.
I show them that a behavior? How do I show them that there just needs to be a modification of their behavior and X will happen?
Mhm.
That's where I think marketing comes in. That then sales has to know this is the behavior we're communicating, that
Yeah.
we've set them up for. The journey has begun. How do we help to continue on
Yeah.
that journey? And so I think you said it in a way that I'm actually still in my head processing. You said behavior change has to happen before before they see the elixir as a painkiller. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, it is marketing's job to change behavior. And we can't put that on the salesperson. If the salesperson is in a call and they're talking to somebody who isn't even thinking about implementing the strategy or
Mm,
isn't thinking about doing the thing or solving the problem in that way, now they've got an extra hurdle to overcome. They have to teach and train the prospect to see the behavior as a solution that's going to bring the outcome that they want, and then they have to also show them how the product is going to do that. But if they're not in the process of trying to solve that problem through a certain set of behaviors, then sales is an uphill battle. So it is marketing's job to change that behavior in the market. And we can go back to the company cam example, because the reality is that many contractors aren't using pictures. Okay,
mm.
it's only, I mean, think about the progress of technology. Okay, when did the iPhone come out, which was like kind of the first viable camera? I mean, my first iPhone camera was not great. I have some of those pictures, they're not that great. But so maybe iPhone 4, I think the camera starts becoming viable. You're not even able to do video in the first
Hmm.
iPhone,
Yep.
right? So the fact is maybe 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere around there is when people are starting to get cell phones, smartphones. A lot of these contractors weren't even having. The guys in the field didn't have them. I mean, I when I was a contractor, I still had guys with flip phones. You know, it was
Yep.
2015. People
Yep.
had flip phones. So it isn't fair to assume that they were already doing it. They did not have that behavior before phones, period. You had to show up on the job site. People didn't always have cell phones. They couldn't communicate from the job site. You had to show up. And so as the technology, as the tools are present themselves to the market, behavior starts to change. But for certain segments, that behavior change is slow. And so you have to educate the market on how to achieve better results through doing things differently. And you have to help them to do that first in a DIY way. How can and think about how you go about your life. There are certain things that you always do yourself. There are certain things, levels of it, that you don't. Okay. Making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you're probably going to do that yourself. You're probably not going to hire a 3-star Michelin chef to make you a peanut butter and jelly
No.
sandwich, right?
But I might buy Goober. I might buy Goober.
You might buy Goober. Sure. You might buy Goober and make it a little bit
If you don't know what Goober is peanut butter and jelly together in the same can, so that I don't have to have 2 cans with 2 knives. It did solve
a problem. Man, I used to try and sneak that in my mom's shopping cart
me
all the
too.
time.
And Mom was not
she
having it.
never.
It was no different than I wanted the Lunchable, and Mom's like, we can cut our own meat and cheese and
Yeah,
crackers. But it's the
right.
Lunchable, Mom.
But
Like,
it's the Lunchable.
sorry, I had to
No,
go
this is
Goober.
no, it's a good example though. So why, why does somebody go from slicing the meat themselves to buying the Lunchable? Why does somebody go from the two different, I don't, is Goober even around anymore? I think that might have been
I don't know if anybody's listening to this and you are watching this and you don't know what Goober is, look it up. But Goober was I remember as a kid like seeing that on the shelf, and it just looked cool. It was just,
yeah,
it
did.
was
The
yeah.
stripes. Yeah, it was good. It was good. It
I
seemed
don't know
good.
if it's still around. No, but I know something big for kids now is the or at least was the Crustables, which
Yeah,
already
Crustables.
had like the kind of peanut butter and jelly. It's like a
Yeah, fully
Crustables like
made.
a peanut butter and jelly empanada is what I
Yeah,
kind of am guessing, right? Like I've never
yeah,
had one, but
yeah.
to your point, I think we and I think that's what's happened in society is that I think about like Amazon and like returning things, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
how they've made it so easy to return things, which then makes it easier for me to buy things, knowing I can just go to Kohl's with one little click of a scan of a code, and I just hand it
Mm-hmm.
back if I don't want it. And so
Yeah,
some things, there needs to be behavior change before I recognize that, hey, this is the elixir I want. I also think that sometimes it is the elixir allows for the behavior change, that
yeah,
I'm okay making that behavior change because you made it so simple. But and maybe a better way to say that is that because of social media, we're almost looking for other people's behavior change to see if it worked before
mm-hmm.
you're willing to adopt it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
yeah,
right. And I think that in turn, in a lot of regards, also goes to marketing, because if we could point out other organizations that are having success with X behavior change, and our product makes for that behavior change to be whatever, more time, more money, revenue, profitable, whatever the problem that you're solving the elixir actually is, if we can highlight the places where people are doing that, I think it's a massive win for the company. But more importantly, it's an easier justification to go back to the decision maker at your company if you see this to say, hey, we need company cam. Hey, this would
Yeah.
make it so much easier for, and I think that that's a key point to make. A very quick point to make is that sometimes you will solve a different person's pain than actually the user of the product. Because what if the pain is the accountant that works for this painting company or operations, right? They're not the one that's actually going to be going out and taking the pictures, but it's their life when they've got 43 projects going on that they're the ones having to update the customer on the project and knowing where it is, or maybe they're in charge of warranty, right? And people are coming back and say, my product, my thing wasn't done right. Well, I have 8 pictures here on the dates and you saw that and I saw it. So I think like that's the other piece to this that I think is important for us to understand is that we have to know whose pain we're solving. Because if we don't know whose pain we're solving, then now we're not communicating to the right person. We're not communicating to the customer. Sometimes we communicate to the person's behavior, the person whose their behavior needs to change. That might not directly result in better world for them. That might result in better world for their company, better world for CTO, better world for organization as a whole. So I think that's an interesting caveat for all of marketing and sales out there to understand whose pain am I actually solving and whose behavior am I actually modifying or changing in order for that pain to be resolved.
Yeah, exactly. That that aspect of getting the person on board with the behavior change. I'm already doing this. I'm trying to do it in a better way. That makes the sales process easy, right? If they're already trying to solve this problem, it makes it so much easier for the salesperson. And that's why it's marketing's job to do that. It's marketing's job to change the way that people think about the world around them, to change the behaviors that are going to impact outcomes.
Yeah.
That's when they start seeking out. They go from, I can't do this on my own anymore. And the reason I can't do it on my own is because I don't have the personal bandwidth. I can't sustain it. And because I can't personally sustain it, I can't scale it. And if your product is able to help them scale and sustain their operations, that's how you know you have a really powerful Elixir on your hands.
Yeah, I like to think about Vidyard. I think Vidyard is one that did that. They saw this shift of people using video, recording themselves on video, maybe even like recording themselves on a Zoom call. And they entered into that space of, let us make it so easy on you to send a video to a prospect, to a customer, to whomever, that then they will trust clicking on that video because it's not the link. We're not scared of being scammed. And you can do it with your cell phone. You can do it with a camera. So the behavior had already begun to change. And as they saw results from other people changing their behavior, then more people said, well, what is this? Oh, I need to be using video. And we're still at a place where not everyone is using video as a form of prospecting or presentations or whatnot. But I think of them when I think about behavior change and then saying, hey, because your behavior is changing, we have a better mousetrap so that you're not having to download and edit. And we're going to keep all of that for you. And oh, by the way, when they see the Vidyard logo, they are going to they're going to trust it. Right. I just wonder, and maybe this is already out there, I'm just throwing this out for food for thought, is just like Calendly kind of solved the problem, and then Periodic came in and said, yeah, it solved it, but there's some companies that don't want you going to a Calendly. Where's the white label for the video? Where's the white label for salespeople being able to record it? And then the video comes with the company logo or icon down in the right corner. You know what I'm saying? Like, when's that? Where's that company at? Where's the Periodic of the video world?
I think the company Appear In does that.
Okay.
Or they used to be Appear In, they changed to Whereby. I think that they do that.
Okay. Yeah.
You got to, for those white label ones, you got to dig deep sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You know, to your point, it's because they're already having probably some success in that behavior. The
Hmm.
person doing it is already having success in the behavior of using a Calendly or using a Vidyard. It is not that salesperson's job to be thinking about what does this do for our brand by white
Hmm.
labeling it. It's not their
Right.
job.
Right.
That's an executive's job. And so,
Right.
the person that's actually doing it isn't gonna, hey boss, have we thought about it may improve our brand a lot if we were.
Yeah.
They're not thinking that.
Well,
They're just doing their job.
what you're saying here is a really excellent point, especially for anybody who is going to be watching this that is in B2B enterprise based sales, because our competitor Calendly, very low cost. It's nearly a DIY product. Obviously the tool facilitates scheduling, but it's very dead simple, straightforward. Once the problem escalates to a level that individual salespeople, we don't want our individual salespeople all setting up their own individual calendar, so on and so forth. Once it escalates, once marketing is like, you know what, it would look a
Mhm.
lot better, would match our brand a lot better. Once it escalates to, well, the reason that we can't sell our service times online is because the payments, we need payment processing, or we have a huge team and we have X, Y, and Z. So once the problems start escalating, then the simple DIY solutions don't work. And that's where your product has to help them again scale and sustain the DIY effort, the behavior change.
Mhm.
Okay. If they've gotten into the habit of, we are using online booking,
Yeah.
right? And I can't live without it anymore. I can't, honestly. It's too difficult. It's annoying. It's just give me a link. Why do I have to go back and forth? Just here's the link. Go find a time. It's all there. You
Go
know,
find a
it,
time.
Go find a time. It gets to that point where you're just like, I can't go back to the old way. I'm already in this behavior set, but now my problem has escalated because my company is growing and I can't
Mhm.
scale myself. I can't sustain this DIY behavior change. I need something that can help me do this bigger and better. And
Mhm.
that's where it goes to sales. That's where a salesperson wants to be. The
Yep.
salesperson wants the candidate that's saying, I have been doing this and it's no longer working. And I'm coming to you because it looks like your product can help me do this bigger and better.
Yeah.
Right?
If a salesperson hasn't factored that into their brain, if they don't know the story that marketing has already told up to this point, then we can't continue to guide this person who's the hero, this buyer. We can't continue to guide them in the right way towards the elixir. And what I see so often, and this is why Action Lab is a must and is a painkiller and isn't just a vitamin, is
Mm-hmm.
because too often it feels like two separate journeys. I look at the website, I get pulled in some way through marketing. I get to a point where now I'm talking to an SDR, I'm talking to a salesperson that they feel conversation ready. And then it almost feels like, oh, wait a minute, I'm at another drawbridge. I'm at
Mm-hmm.
another journey. And sales, hey, what motivated you to reach out today? And oh, yeah, well, tell us about this and that. And they're thinking in their head, like, wait a minute, haven't I already answered all these questions internally in my brain? Don't they already
Mm-hmm.
know this? Why am I having to do this
Yeah.
all over again? Right? It almost feels you know what it feels like? It feels like where you call in for support and you tell the whole first person your problem. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we can fix it. We can fix it. I need to transfer you over to Travis. Travis. All right, so tell us why you're calling today. Well, I just um I I just told Miriam what I was going. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, man. She didn't tell me any of that. Okay. And you have to
Yeah.
do it all over again. That that should not happen. Sales should already know when they're conversation ready and they show up to this call, this is where they're at. I may
Mm-hmm.
summarize where they're at to make sure that there's alignment, but I shouldn't have to ask 4 questions to then know where they're at. And so I think there needs to be, it's funny because when I think about Company Cam, that really is kind of the point of that as well. That like if I was ever pulled into a project, I can go back and look at all the pictures to see what progress they've made and know where they're at and not have to ask 4 questions to see what do we need to do next. No, I know where we need to do next. And so I think in order for our Elixir to help a company, for the person to sign on the dotted line and say, yes, I want your product, sales has to be aligned with marketing to the degree of that when you pass them on, when you say, okay, here you go, it's your turn now, that I say, great, we're ready. I know exactly where they're at, and we continue the process, right? Because what they've started to do in my scenario is they've started to keep both people on. So Miriam like says, hey, Travis, this is Chris. This is what he's going through. I'm going to go ahead and transfer the call over to you now. Are you good, Travis? Yes, I am. Thanks, Miriam. And now I get to move on. I don't have to re-explain myself. That's what they've begun to do to fix that problem. And what organizations should do in our regard is they got to have a line between marketing and sales. And I'm going to throw this out there because I know our next point is talking about that our Elixir should help companies scale and sustain. So I want to throw this out there. And I think it's really important to hear is that the reason why Action Lab isn't a vitamin and is a painkiller, and I think this is the number one reason, is because having another kickoff meeting, having another sales meeting, having another company after hours happy hour, having another company retreat, those things will not do what we're telling you Action Lab will do. Trust me. Now, you could try. But what you have to understand is why those will fail is due to context. Because when I see my 2 leaders and when I know what conversations I have, I'm not expecting anything new than what I've had previously. So the only way that new meeting works is if we fired both of our directors or salespeople. I'm sorry, both of our directors, like VP of sales and marketing director. We fire them and bring completely new people in. And then we have that first meeting and it was like an Action Lab. That might work. But we know most companies aren't going to do that. You need to have an Action Lab that is something contextually that's different than everything else you're doing to show your commitment to alignment. So if you're not having an Action Lab, to me, that suggests that you're okay with the cold civil war that is going on, and that alignment isn't something that's high on your priority list. And I think it's shame on you if you're in marketing saying that. Shame on you if you're in sales saying that. Shame on the leaders if they're just having their secret meetings with, cigars and cognac, and their people aren't getting to be a part of that. And I think that is why the number one thing that's how Action Lab helps your product, your company scale and sustain is that we're going to teach you how to do the Action Lab. We're going to peel them out of context, give them a new context for the way your company wants to make sure that there's alignment, that there's no longer going to be a civil war, that we're signing a treaty, that we're going to be on the same team. We're going to go fight a different war together. And then you get to take the Action Lab because we're going to teach you how to do it. And then you get to go and do that quarterly, monthly, yearly, whatever you decide. And I think that's the power of the Action Lab, is that just like your product, the Elixir, our Elixir is the Action Lab. The Elixir that your company is selling has to help the company scale, has to help them sustain growth, because if it only helps me one time, you can be assured 2 things are going to happen. 1, I'm not going to tell anyone about it. And 2, I will never buy another product from you. And we both know that companies that grow always have the ancillary product, or they're trying to increase customer spend. So I apologize for my soapbox there, but I know in a little bit. But I think it's important for people to hear that we are challenging ourselves as we come on here and we talk about the Elixir. We challenge ourselves on, okay, how is the Action Lab the Elixir that people want? How is our product that as well? And I think it's important for people to hear that.
Yeah. And I think that for me, as I look at, just my involvement periodic, the last little over a year and a half, been running marketing and sales. We're a startup, and so startups are kind of unique because in those mid to early stages, departments are small, and so you end up wearing a lot of hats. And I have been over both marketing and sales this whole time, and what that has allowed me to do is to uniquely tailor the entire journey from they have never heard about us before, they might not even be aware of the category, all the way to inking the deal. And just yesterday, I had a really great call, and a lot of the marketing efforts that we did, we planted some seeds, early on in the beginning of the year, at the end of last year, that are budding and really making huge impact. And we're finding more and more people that are conversation ready, that are within budget, that need what we have, and they can buy it. They can actually make that purchase. And I had a call yesterday, and at the end of the call, there were two decision makers on the call, and they mentioned that the marketing materials that I put together. So what we've got now, how this works is, I'm really cognizant of the idea that when somebody gets to your website, they are not necessarily wanting to buy yet. They don't know, and they don't really want to get into a crazy long email funnel to figure that out, right? So we ungate a bunch of stuff. We have downloads that they can share with each other, right? And that sharing, right? They were able to download and share, so that got them both on the call, because they're like, okay, this is a for real possibility. And once they did book the appointment on our site, that connected to my calendar, so that I could just pop up a Zoom call. It's all automatic. It's all there. And on the call, they were already very informed, to the extent that I didn't have to go through a pitch. I didn't have a pitch deck. I didn't have,
Mm,
I didn't have any of that stuff. I didn't really need it. Um, all I had to do was start asking questions.
mm,
That's all I had to do. All I had to do is ask them what they were trying to accomplish with the platform, and everything that they needed done, with the exception of maybe one thing, we were able to do.
mm,
And then I said, all right, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to set up a custom demo for you. It's an example of exactly how it would work for your use case. Can you meet in at 2 o'clock, about an hour later? They were like, yeah, we're free. Okay, let's reconvene. I took that time in between the meeting. I created the custom demo. We got back on. We went through only the things that they cared about. We have a ton of features. It's a
sure,
very feature robust system.
sure.
I focused only on the ones that they cared about. And by the end of the call, they thought, man, this would solve our problem.
Hmm,
This is the magic elixir. And then they
mhm,
mentioned something kind of unique, Chris, which I think was really, really powerful. She mentioned that the demo videos that I had online were really powerful. We just launched these a couple months ago. She got a hold of the demo videos. There are 9 of them. I I was like, I was just going for it. We're just gonna do 9. She watched all of them. She was educated. She was informed. She knew that this was the elixir for her. Um, and by the end of the call, they were ready for a proposal. I got off the call. I shipped the proposal. They looked at it. I'm, my fingers are crossed, but that's fast. Okay, that's speed, and it was a for real deal. So being aligned in your sales, this is the point. Being aligned in your sales, from brand awareness all the way to inking the deal,
mhm,
making sure that marketing and sales are collaborating and joined together. They don't necessarily have to be on the same team or under a certain type of leader or anything like that, but just as long as they are in line, and that full story, that
mm.
buyer journey is consistent all the way throughout, you're going to speed up the sales process. You're going to help your customers succeed in their lives and their business, and your company is going to grow. It's just going to work.
And when there's not alignment and sales and marketing see the journey differently, your company will suffer.
That's right. Boom, man. We did it.
Boom. Boom. We did it.
Boom. All
Boom
right.
goes the
Great
dynamite.
episode. Great episode, guys. Join us next week. Join.actionlab.live. We do this every Wednesday. Usually start about 11 a.m. Eastern, but we did see some extra activity happening around here at noon. So maybe we'll re-examine that time. But as for now, next week at 11. My name is Torlando, and this is Chris. Thanks for watching Action Lab. Go take some action, guys.